story is much, not more than my story. St. Augustine was probably the most rigorous test that nonviolence had in the past. If we had not passed it, we could have lost the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act is a challenge to all of us to eliminate the last vestiges of injustice in our beloved country. President Lyndon Johnson. We allowed the idea of nonviolence to work through us and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. Martin Luther King. June 2011. For the gift to the people of St. Augustine. Thank you, brother.
Remember we met earlier.
That's a great line. Really liked you.
Yeah, I can see.
Knowing that until we are all free, that none of us are truly free, we now pay tribute and look back with great admiration for those people that suffered guns, bats, bricks, stones, yells, taunts, and jeers, and gave nothing in retaliation but songs and prayers. Those times showed us the worst of our humanity and also the best of our humanity. We are now forever in their debt. We are encouraging, we are mandating, we are demanding that the march go on into the Plaza and off into the rest of history. St. Augustine, the nation's oldest city, recognizes all of its history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it leads us always into a more enlightened and a more diverse future. So now, having righted one wrong, right there, let us continue to work for equality, respect, and dignity for all people. Thank you very much.
I'll tell you a little bit about how this came about, because I think it's an interesting story. My business partner, Fred Hallback, gave me a call and said that John Regan with the city had asked if we would be interested in dedicating a design for a monument for Ambassador Young. And I was honest with Ambassador Young when I met him in Atlanta that my first question to Fred was, who is Andrew Young? It wasn't a name that I knew. And I grew up in Alachua, just north of Gainesville, so very close to St. Augustine. And I had little knowledge of the powerful events that happen here in the city. And I feel so honored to have to learn about it. But after I was talking with Fred, because I'm of the generation of 20 and 30 somethings, I went to Google and Googled Ambassador Young, and soon found out among being UN ambassador, first African American congressman from Georgia post Reconstruction, the mayor of Atlanta, integral to the Olympics, which my wife and I, it was one of our favorite Olympics. When I found out the role that he had with Dr. Martin Luther King, I think that was just astounding, the amount of history that you have been witness to and a part of.
Well,
Ambassador Andrew Young, please come on.
This is a beautiful day, and this is a beautiful gathering. It more than makes up for the gathering that was here in 1964. But we're really not bad people either. And we always were taught that even when people disagreed with us, they just didn't see things from our side, but they were God's children too. And so whether they had on sheets or whatever they had on, whether they met us with warm hearts of bricks and bottles, we knew that somewhere was a child of God. And it was banking on that there's a lot of bad in all of us, and there's a lot of good in all of us. And what the nonviolent movement was about, and what America is about, is finding that common ground of human decency and respect that allows us to live together as brothers and sisters and not perish together as fools. And that's what the movement was all about. But this was a test case, and Senator McGovern remembers that the filibuster was going on in the Senate. And if there had been an outbreak of violence here, if blacks had retaliated and tried to do evil for evil, not only would we have been defeated here in St. Augustine, but the entire civil rights movement would have been set back for half a century perhaps. But I feel that I'm not the one that should be honored here. That there were 4 students who sat in at a Woolworth, picketed a Woolworth. There was Hank Thomas over here, who came in and staged the first sit-in by himself. There was the death of President John Kennedy. And there was the assassination and bombing of 4 little girls in a church in Birmingham. So we didn't come here, you know, fresh, naive. We knew that this was a struggle for which we had to give it all. Dr. King used to say over and over again, you can't tell when you're gonna die, and you can't tell how you're gonna die, but you're gonna die. The only choice you have is, what do you die for? And he said, if you haven't found something that's important enough for you to give your life, you really don't have anything to live for anyway. And my fear, my greatest fear in the civil rights movement was getting hit by a truck on one of these roads around Atlanta or on the way somewhere down the road. But it was an honor. It was a privilege to join the people of St. Augustine who had already suffered so much, but who, if they had gotten out of hand, instead of moving history forward, they would have set it back. But even after having been beaten up night after night, and I was, you know, I don't even remember getting bleeding. Nothing hurt me. I just got knocked out quick. When I saw it in the film, I said, "Good gracious alive!" You know, I almost didn't even have any bruises, and but we had to keep going. So we got down to this corner, and we went back over to see the same people. There was somebody in the crowd who heard. There was a small voice of a Florida state trooper that said, "Let them through." And so it was never a total, all of us on one side and all of us on the other side. It was an attempt to find a way to bring out the best in each other. And nobody has suffered more in that than the gentleman who's just walked in with us, Dr. Haley. Yeah. And it was his invitation to Hosea Williams, and that helped get the movement started. It was the refusal of those students to betray him, and they took the suffering on themselves. So with that kind of heritage, what I did was minuscule. And if it had not been for Senator McGovern and many others like him, who were sitting there listening to the filibuster all night long, and who wore them down and cast the vote for the 1964 Civil Rights Act, we might never have put an end to this struggle. But not wanting to stir up any trouble, but just realizing that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so whenever there is injustice, we've got to find a path to justice. And I couldn't help but notice that our Archbishop has a Hispanic name. And the present struggle of citizens who have come from the Latin side of our global heritage right now is in danger. And so we've got to find a clear way to redefine their role as citizens and make sure that America becomes a place that will always be open to the tired, the poor, the huddled masses yearning to be free. And for our oldest city to stand up the way it did is a wonderful example of the best of America. And you are just wonderful people. God has blessed you, but he didn't waste those blessings on you. He blessed you that you might pass on those blessings to the peoples of the world who yet in need. I saw a gentleman behind me in a uniform. He's in that uniform because there's injustice all over the world. There's a threat to justice in a global economy that will impact us if we don't know about it. So all of us can't be nonviolent, but all of us can try to do the best that we can to help freedom to reign all over God's earth. Thank you, and God bless you.
That's what Enzo talked about the other night.